Okay, so we've got a bit of a different video here for you today. Today we're going to have a look at a legendary goldfish farm that used to be situated in the West Midlands in the UK. First of all, I wanted to say a massive thank you to David Ford, who provided me with this footage. I'll leave a link in the description to his YouTube channel where this footage is from, but also to David Shaw, who I spoke to online and who visited the farm and provided me with some pictures and stories. It's an incredible farm, so I'll talk you through some of the stories and about the fish while this footage is playing. So as I said before, these ponds and this fish house was situated in the West Midlands, and for about 80 years it was in the back garden of Tommy Sutton Senior first and Tommy Sutton Junior. Now the father and son kept all types of fish: Bristol shubunkins, Ranchu, Fantails, Orandas, Veiltials, Pearlscales, you name it. And there's some lovely Bristol shubunkins being shown there. And they were really known for having top quality fish. They were such good quality fish that people actually bred their fish from them. And there is even still some bloodlines available today if you look hard enough. There's also something called the Tommy Sutton Award, which the AMGK, the Association for Midland Goldfish Keepers, has an award. So that's kind of shows you the standing of Tommy Sutton. There's an award in his name, which shows you how highly regarded he was. Sadly, Tommy Sutton Senior and Junior have both passed away and the ponds are no longer there. So what we have here is a rare opportunity to look at video and photographs and to see what kind of incredible fish were kept. Tommy Sutton Senior died in the 1980s, and his son did carry this on until he ceased the business in the early 2000s due to ill health. So I thought this was a nice opportunity for me to put something together that shows off the farm for how incredible it was. I've done a bit of research to find out about the farm, but also talk to people who actually visited the farm themselves. Now, Tommy Senior, the man who started these goldfish farms, he was actually a keen fisherman, which is kind of what got his interest in fish, I guess, overall. But then started to got an aquarium and then gradually moved on to goldfish and started to breed them. So he installed ponds in his garden as well as had fish houses. This is some of the fish you can see in something called the Oranda house, which are really shallow kind of tanks. And he actually got to the point where he installed so many ponds, he had to buy land off his neighbours so he could then extend the ponds even further. And we'll see a picture of that and some footage in a minute of how big those ponds actually were. So the fish houses themselves that you can see here were basically a series of shallow tanks, and he did keep all his goldfish in quite shallow tanks, as you can see. One of them was called the Oranda house, as I've mentioned before. You can guess what that housed, but there were several fish houses that kind of came and went over the years. These were used for selective breeding, for fry, and gradually fry were kind of put in more in warm ponds for growing on outside. And they were all kind of line-bred pedigree fish. You can say these are top quality fish that people, again, use for their own breeding as well outside of this. So the goldfish that lots of people have in the hobby now, some of them will be descended from Tommy Sutton's stock. And they've also been sent abroad. Yeah, so those genes are worldwide, which is incredible. One thing that really caught my attention with this facility is that the amount of different varieties that were kept outdoors. I do remember talking to Chris Shaw, who provided me with some photographs that are coming up later in the video, about a visit he had to Tommy Sutton's farm, and he said there was no better sight than seeing a group of perfect red cap Orandas swimming around at like 8 degrees. He also told me a story about when he bought his last batch of fish. He got some Orandas, some red and white lion heads and calico fantails, but he did actually talk to Tommy, and Tommy said this is one of the things about how he got to keep his fish outdoors. Really, some of the fish that he kept, he managed to keep them outdoors. So some jikin he got from Japan, unfortunately they all died quite soon after getting them, but he looked in the tank and there was some fertile eggs. And what he did was he hatched these fry in the house, the fish houses, and then gradually over a series of different summers he moved them outdoors, and this gradually allowed the fish to become really hardy. So here's an image of the ponds outdoors, and they were simple rectangular ponds. Realistic, they weren't very deep, about a foot deep, and they did have one section that was a bit deeper, and this apparently made them better for viewing and netting fish that were being sold. It also allowed some of the stock that were not kept indoors, the breeding stock, to be housed over winter outside in those deeper parts of the pond. Now, from my research, I found out they put their young fish outside in around May, and the fish were regularly fed with brine shrimp that were collected from nearby bodies of water. The ponds were often drained in October and cleaned, and this provided a nice clean environment for the fish to overwinter in. You can see here in some colour photographs provided by Chris Shaw that they had nets on top of them, and he told me about a story that one year a local cat ate its way through 12 large show quality red line heads, which is obviously something you don't want to happen. Some of the ponds would freeze over in the winter, and some of the fish would develop swim bladder troubles and issues, but Tommy said that in a way it's better that happens before they're sold. Now, because these fish were very, very hardy, and not just the common outdoor fancy goldfish like shubunkin or wakin, they had kind of a bred resistance into them. It was in their genes, this resistance to having these really hardy fish. And like most breeders, they started with thousands of fish and ended up with 20 or 30 show quality fish from each spawning. But these ones ended up being the most hardy and the ones that could deal with that weather, as they were kept outside. So unfortunately the farm's not there anymore. I would have absolutely loved to have had a chance to visit it. You know, the bloodlines are still around, so we can still look carefully and find some fish from those certain bloodlines. As I said, I really wish I'd had a chance to visit this farm, and I do really appreciate all the work that went into it. I just thought it was worth putting this video together. If you fancy seeing any more goldfish related videos, please feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you next time, hopefully. Bye.